The iPhone SE 4, the successor to the iPhone SE 2022 Generation 3, looks like it might be here. Maybe the first quarter of 2025. We've seen some leaks, we've seen some renders, and there's a lot of big changes. Like a lot of big changes. So there looks like they're finally abandoning the classic iPhone form factor. No more Touch ID, no more smaller screen, no more big bezels, which I'm actually okay with the bezels going away. That's not those weren't the greatest, but still retaining one camera. Looks like it's going to have 8 gigabytes of RAM, running the A18 Bionic, which is something I really want to talk about because that's very interesting. And it looks like, of course, it'll be doing that so it can get Apple Intelligence because, well, Apple Intelligence isn't here yet. But as the lineup kind of matures and as we have the phone for the next couple of months, Apple Intelligence will be rolling out to the iPhone 16 series phones and the 15 Pro and Pro Max. So, like, we're very close. We're in October now. We're about very soon probably going to get iOS 18.1, which will bring the first wave of Apple Intelligence features. And then we're going to get some more in December, and then we're going to get some more in 2025 at some undisclosed time and location. But the iPhone SE 4 looks like it'll probably be out around the same timeline as when the SE 2022 came out, or the one previously around springtime. I think it was around like March. And then we will finally have our successor. So they skipped a year because we had the iPhone SE 2020, and then they came out with a refresh in 2022. They added the newer chip, added 5G, and they didn't make a whole lot of changes. Really, it's about the same phone. And the iPhone SE 2022 can still be a pretty decent phone. I mean, it's got the A15 Bionic chip in it, which is very, very capable. And on day-to-day usage, yeah, it's got a 2,000 milliamp battery, but a lot of people still like the smaller, compact form factor. They like that the price is not super expensive. You can pick one of these up, refurbish. You can get an Amazon renewed one for 200 something bucks, I think. And I was looking on like eBay, and you can get them anywhere in different grades and conditions from like 150 to 250 in different storage sizes and things like that. So they're very affordable. And for kids, for teenagers, for people who are getting their first iPhone, for like a backup phone in case something happens to yours, they still are very, very good phones. I mean, it's got 5G, the A15 Bionic, 4 gigs of RAM. It'll do anything that you basically need it to do other than Apple Intelligence. And a lot of people really aren't interested in Apple Intelligence. And I'd wager to say that people who value and use the current iPhone SEs really don't care about Apple Intelligence either. So, what's the sell on the new one? So, we're going to be going from a 4.7 inch screen, Touch ID, to no Touch ID, and looks like a 6.1 inch screen. Basically, it looks just like the iPhone 15 or the iPhone 14, but it has one camera on the back. And we know the price is going to change. Like, there's no way it's going to come in at 429 bucks, which is what Apple still sells this one for on their website. And it's really weird because they also sell the iPhone 15 for $599. They sell, of course, the iPhone 16, and they have the iPhone 14 on there, I think, as well. So when they still hold on to those older phones, uh, and you going to change the form factor on the iPhone SE to where it basically looks like an iPhone 14 or a 15, what's the real point? Other than they just want to maybe try and have a lower price value, price point cash grab phone to try and scoop up some of those other sales. So I think they believe Apple Intelligence is more enticing than it really is. And we've made sacrifices, right? We made a sacrifice in 2022 to keep this form factor, and we didn't mind the fact there was one camera because most people buying this phone, they don't really care that much about high-end cameras, even though the 12 megapixel camera in here works out perfectly fine. Like, I've never had any issues with it. During normal, decent lighting conditions, it takes pretty fantastic photos. So the whole idea of the iPhone SE was to have a smaller, cheaper, more traditional form factor, because you have to remember, they went away from that. I mean, once we got rid of the iPhone 8, we went to the iPhone 10. No more buttons, no more original iPhone form factor. All that stuff went away, and there were still people who liked these phones. So they kind of held on to them, but they sold it at a much cheaper price point. When you're paying $699, $799, $1,000 for these other iPhones, you could still get an iPhone SE for barely 400 bucks. And I mean, that was a great deal. It was even significantly cheaper than the iPhone 13 mini, which came in, I believe, at $699. So price point and value were one of the biggest things, and also maintaining that traditional form factor. So if the traditional form factor goes away, and if you force people to use Face ID, which a lot of people didn't like Face ID, my mom, who I miss dearly, she's been gone since January. She didn't want to get a newer phone. She was very happy with her iPhone 8 and her iPhone 7, and she finally got an iPhone 13 mini, but she hated Face ID and she wanted Touch ID back so badly. She's like, I wish I could just go back to my older phone. And it was one of those things where it was like, okay, well, she was stuck paying for it, and she didn't realize that the iPhone SE 2022 exists because she didn't call her son, who's like the phone expert, right? So she's like, man, I wish I knew that phone existed. But the whole time she had her iPhone 13 mini, she hated it, and she wished she had her old phone back. So there's a lot of people that still like this design, that still like this familiarity of the Touch ID, that don't want Face ID, that don't care about cameras, and don't want a bigger phone. Like 6.1 inches is still, for people who've been using a 4.1 inch phone, it's still a pretty big phone. So, and also, I mean, you look how thin and light this is, and then again, the dollar value can't be understated. So, what's the price going to be? Especially when you've already got an iPhone option floating on your website for $599. You've got this one for $429. I can pretty much guarantee the sucker ain't going to be $429. And then also, if you're going to change so much stuff, what's the point of just having one camera? I mean, you should at least throw the second camera in there at this point, right? If you're changing everything else, I really feel like if they're making all these changes to it and making it like a very kind of a dumbed down but slightly smarter version of the iPhone 14 or 15, because you have to remember the iPhone 15 has a 2-year-old processor at this point. The iPhone 14 has a 3-year-old processor at this point. They can't do Apple Intelligence, but what they do on a day-to-day basis is they still run really well. So, I would encourage most people, if you're looking to get another phone, or like if you feel like you've got to get the new iPhone SE and you don't care about Apple Intelligence, just go pick up an iPhone 14. Get an Amazon renewed iPhone 14 or a 15. Save yourself probably a couple $100 and still get an even better experience on the daily, because they do have extra stuff in them that will make them nice. But the weird thing is, they might have an OLED screen, which is really interesting because it'll be the first OLED screen in the normal phone. And I think what they're talking about in 2025 is that all the iPhone 17s will have OLEDs. And of course, I guarantee you, Apple will still find some way to make it 60 hertz. But yeah, it's probably going to be a 60 hertz screen. So even if it is OLED, I mean, don't get too excited about that, because it's probably still going to be 60 hertz. So the screen will be dumbed down, even though it's a higher caliber quality screen. And yeah, it's going to have one camera. They're going to change the form factor up. And my guess is it'll probably be $549. My guess is, I hope it comes in at $499. My guess is probably $549. And at that price point, if you don't care about Apple Intelligence and it's already a 6.1 inch screen, just buy a stinking iPhone 15 or get an iPhone 14. Or hang on to your iPhone SE 2022. You don't actually have to get rid of your iPhone SE 2022. Just because they make the new one doesn't mean you need to get rid of your old one, right? This one still has 5G. It still has decent storage options. I mean, you can get a 128 or a 256. People using these phones aren't cramming a terabyte of storage into their phone, so that's fine. And you can still get them brand new. You can get them Amazon renewed. You can get them refurbished. So you could still use this phone for quite some many years. So the last phone that just got updated with iOS 18 was the iPhone 10R and the iPhone 10s, which are older than this. So I think we probably still have like 2 or 3 more years left on the software support updates that we'll see for this. So, I mean, you can still hang on to this for quite some time if you're happy about it or you're worried about it. They're not going to flip a switch. They're not going to make it obsolete. The only thing you're going to be missing out on is, well, Apple Intelligence, which at this point isn't available on any phone. And it may not be something that you really find that really matters all that much in your life anyway. So, yeah, it's interesting, but I think at this point, like, we had the iPhone SE, the SE 2020, then the SE 2022, and I feel like I've been pretty well an expert on this phone. I've covered it very well over the last couple of years, and it's funny because I actually really like the iPhone SE phones. Because why? They offer tremendous value, and they have great performance, and they have a lower price point, and you get access to all the Apple services and features and stuff that you would with the more expensive phones. I've always been very adamant about the iPhone is for $800, is kind of a ripoff because you have a 60 hertz screen, you have only two cameras, you have no always on display, and super slow charging. The battery life is kind of okay. Like, they just really weren't that great of a value proposition. Like, the new one has some shiny new trinkets, and yeah, it's the best version of the normal iPhone ever, but I still have those complaints about it, especially for an $829 phone. So when you look at an 829 phone and then you look at this at a 429 phone, which of course you can get refurbished or renewed for like 200 bucks, and you can still use Apple Card, Apple Music, Apple TV Plus, Apple Fitness, use it with your Apple Watch, use it with iMessage, use it with your iPad. Like, it opens up this whole world of Apple services and Apple ecosystem that a lot of people really like, and you don't have to pay those high premium costs. And that's one thing that's great about Android, because there's just so many different phones at so many different price points. Yeah, I mean, it is kind of a small screen. It's only 720p basically, and it's 4.7 inches, big bezels, has a Touch ID button, there's no facial recognition, and it's like the way things kind of phones used to be, and a lot of people still really like that. And you can say, oh, well, nobody really buys those things. And a few years ago, Apple was selling over 20 million of these phones a year. I mean, the year that this phone came out, I think, or at least I know the iPhone SE 2020, I think it sold 25 million the first year. And that same year, Samsung sold like 20 million of their entire like Galaxy S series phones for their flagship series that year. So you can say that there's not a lot of demand there. Well, there's not compared to normal iPhones. But compared to Android phones, a lot of people still like these phones. And I like this phone. And I think it's been something that's always interesting to me because I like the smaller form factor. I like that it's lighter. I still love Touch ID. And all the things that I loved about the iPhone SE are going away. And they're just leaving you with the remnants of it that are kind of silly in 2025 when it comes out, which is one screen. I mean, not one screen. Of course, I have one screen. One camera, and kind of a dumbed down version of the normal iPhone 15, 16, or 14. And probably not that much more, like, not much of a cost savings. I mean, it's a big cost savings when you look at iPhone SE 2022 at 429, and then you look at iPhone 15, iPhone 16 at 829. $400, that's a big difference. We'll see how it pans out, though. But whenever they have the iPhone 14 and 15 still on the website, it doesn't give me a lot of good feelings inside about what the price will be for this thing. So anyway, let me know what your thoughts are. Are you an iPhone SE person? Or are you looking forward to it? Are you still looking forward to it? Is this something that you're excited about, or you think kind of needs to go away now? Like, do we need an iPhone SE whenever it's going to be so similar to the other phones? Because that was the big thing. When the iPhone SE came out, we have these other phones like the iPhone SE 2020, iPhone SE 2022, fundamentally different, still the traditional phone size and significantly cheaper. And the other phones were the newer design that some people didn't want. So I think that there's a lot with these changes happening. And granted, I don't think that we necessarily need an iPhone SE 2025 that looks like this exactly. But if they kept it with Touch ID, or they put Touch ID into the power button, and we got what I really wanted a few years ago, which would have been an SE Plus, I think that would be great, because basically it would be like an iPhone 8 Plus, but with all modern technology. And if you could throw two cameras in there, man, I think that would sell like hotcakes. I think like a $500 revitalized iPhone SE Plus that looks like this, but with a 5.5-inch screen with two cameras, A18 Bionic chip, I would use that sucker till the cows came home. So anyway, let me know what you think. If you have any questions, comments, gripes, concerns, all that stuff, go to the comment section. I'll do my best to get back with you. If you enjoy the video, please hit the like and the subscribe button and the little notification bell if you want updates when new videos come out. And as always, thanks for being here. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you guys next time.